The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast.
Rondo hands it off to Jackson. Jackson sees an opening, throws it away. Here comes Bridges. Bridges to Booker, back to Bridges. Devin Booker with his first career triple-double. And he does it in the Western Conference Finals.
Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. The Suns defeated the Los Angeles Clippers in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. And Devin Booker had maybe the greatest Phoenix Suns game of all time, at least close to it. My name is Mike. I'm here with Sam. Sam, how are you doing?
I can't put into words how I'm doing anymore, Mike. 1-0 in the conference finals. 8 wins in a row from the Phoenix Suns. Devin Booker, like you said, one of the greatest performances in Suns history. I'm not going to rank where I think it is exactly right now, but just no empty calories from Devin Booker tonight. I'll put it like that. Nutritionally dense with every bucket. He destroyed the Los Angeles Clippers in Game 1. I just said it very plainly on Twitter. Without Chris Paul, the Suns needed Devin Booker to be that dude. He is that dude. He is that dude. That's the sort of performance he had in Game 1. He was legendary.
40, 11, and 13. His first career triple-double coming in the Western Conference Finals with only 2 turnovers on the game. And every bit of it was needed because of no Chris Paul. I before the game I said time to be legendary. That's what I said online, and then he was. That's really what it was, because that's what it was going to take no matter what. And part of it, I think, was because the Suns having essentially a week off. And the Clippers are in rhythm. Like their best game that they played in the playoffs was the last game they played. So they came into this game hot. And the Suns needed all of that in order to win. And it was the best game of his career. Just statistically,
how many times have we said that? How many times have we said that about him this playoffs? Like twice already, right?
At least. And by the moment, though, the moment is really what did it, because Chris Paul just being at home. I mean, that's really what it was. Your other superstar, and obviously the Clippers missing a superstar as well. But it's just what Chris Paul has done for the Suns in the playoffs in this season is irreplaceable, and they came as close as possible to replacing him with a single player still doing his normal thing, plus what Chris Paul adds in this game specifically. Incredible.
I have to be honest. I was a little bit worried coming into this game, and I was preparing myself to cut the Suns some slack if they came out flat because of the rest difference. Typically, teams, you're used to playing every other day for so long, and then suddenly you rest for a full week. It's nice to have a couple days off, but I was prepared for that possibility that the Suns would come out flat. I didn't expect 55% from the field, 41% from deep, 100% from the free throw line as a team. I didn't expect 120 points in Game 1. Devin Booker obviously was at the center of it all. And by the way, I know not everyone has had a chance to listen to our preview episode that we released literally yesterday. I still think that's relevant. If you still like to go back and listen to that one too, I would say go for it. But I'm so glad that one thing we touched on there, Mike, is not just that, because we know the Clippers are the small team. They like to play the small ball lineups. They like to switch. We know they do those things. But I'm so glad we said they are masters of defensive versatility, and they're going to try and change things up, especially in the games where Paul is out. And they dropped, and they trapped, and they zoned. And no matter what they threw at Devin Booker in this game, this is the most impressive part. For him being in his first playoff run, to be able to take those situations and just outwork them, and in just every single situation, he took whatever the Clippers threw at him and just made it his own ball game. It was masterful manipulation, the likes of which Suns fans obviously haven't seen in the playoffs since Steve Nash. And yeah. There aren't enough good things to say about it. I mean, this was a legendary performance from Devin Booker. Hope he can keep it going in Game 2. But this was awesome.
To have the ability to just find the weak spot in the defense over and over again is really difficult. And in the preview that we talked about Marcus Morris trying to defend Devin Booker, Terrence Mann, Reggie Jackson, Rajon Rondo. By the way, he did end up playing quite a bit of minutes in this game and was matched up against Devin Booker. And, he actually, I think the Suns as a whole, but specifically Devin Booker, found a way to get the matchups where Devin Booker did have the strength advantage. Something we talked about in the last game is harder against the Clippers than any other team that they've played so far. But they found ways to continually just get that guy on him where Devin Booker just was able to get the edge. And doing it the way he does it is just so fun to watch with that mid-range game. And there was a point in the game where he probably made 8 or 9 shots in a row.
Drop coverage.
Drop coverage. They couldn't keep up with it. I expect, not to get too deep into this right now, but I expect they're going to trap him a lot more until Chris Paul comes back. And that's when it becomes really up to the rest of the guys to hit shots. And we've seen that has led to a lot of losses for other teams in the playoffs so far, whether that be the Lakers or the Nuggets. The Nuggets having to, the Nuggets trapped the first 2 games, tried to drop the second 2. Neither of them worked. So I expect it's going to be a little bit of the opposite. There was switching in this one, but Devin Booker just killed them so easily in this game that I imagine they're going to try to trap a little bit more and see if they can find ways to force anyone else to beat them.
And look, that's only natural given the other guys you see on the Suns roster. But if we just look at what those guys did today, let's start here. How about like the campaign DeAndre Ayton synergy? Because those were 2 guys who I identified going into the series as, obviously, you need them to step up. You need them to play huge roles. DeAndre, against small ball lineups, what's he going to do? What's his value going to be? Can he stay on the floor? Can he dominate the offensive glass? Can he seal off guys? All these questions we had in our episode yesterday. And for Cam, it was all about penetration. How do you add a pressure release valve into the offense next to Devin Booker, another guy who can suck the defense in and then find shooters or cutters? Those 2 today were phenomenal, we can say. Ayton, 20 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. Cam Payne, 11 points, 3 rebounds, 9 assists. Cam Payne, by the way, only played 29 minutes. Until Chris Paul comes back, we can talk about this in more in-depth in a few minutes. I don't want this to be like a central thing now, because it's really throwing someone under the bus if we talk about it now. But I can just say this: Cam Payne, 29 minutes, too little. Much too little. He should be playing like 35 plus, in my view, until Chris Paul comes back. If he can handle that workload, he should do it because he's shown that he deserves that. He's done a fantastic job of drawing the defense in. Ayton, in tandem with him, playing as the trailer rather than just in the dunker spot, in the pick and roll, in order to feast off those opportunities where the Clippers, they're trying to rotate, they're trying to help at the rim, but they just don't have the personnel. They don't have the rim protection when they play small to have anyone to stop DeAndre Ayton when he's coming at them like a train. And on the other end of the spectrum, when they play Zubats or Boogie, as they did for large stretches of this game, food. Those guys were just food for Devin Booker. Drop coverage, bucket after bucket after bucket in the mid-range. So the Clippers have a major problem right now with trying to figure out the rotations and exactly what they can do to stop this Suns offense.
It becomes especially difficult, without Marcus Morris. If Marcus Morris started the game, didn't do much really in the first half, and then did not start the second half due to an apparent knee injury, but he was able to play later on in that first half, didn't play too much, and was taken out towards the end of the game. So we'll see if that's something that could affect the game going forward, because Marcus Morris is an important piece for this team, for the Clippers, because he hits shots and he's big enough to defend multiple positions, which is especially important for the Clippers, who play no center. They really have to do that. But I'm glad you brought both Cam Payne and DeAndre Ayton up. Just a quick note on Cameron Payne: 9 assists to only 1 turnover. Like, this is exactly what's missing without Chris Paul, right? You need to have another player who can create offense for other people without turning the ball over. The Suns did struggle with turnovers early in this game. I think they were testing a little bit how the refs were calling the game, and I think how the Clippers were defending them. And so Cameron Payne needed to do that. Suns needed him to do that. So to be able to do that, I think, was pretty remarkable. And on DeAndre Ayton, I think this is interesting. He's cutting now, right? Mm-hmm. David Nash, our friend, said he was trailing, essentially, instead of just sort of standing in the dunker spot. He's been bad at cutting throughout his career so far. And just the leaps that he's made in these playoffs has been remarkable. Just to see the things that he's gotten good at. His hands have gotten better. His rebounding has gotten better. His defense has been more consistent. But now, all of a sudden, he's cutting on a regular basis at exactly the right times and making himself a big enough target to be able to pass to guys. And then dunking on those plays, right? He's not going for the layups. And then there was another play where Mikal Bridges was on the wing, passed it to DeAndre Ayton, who was in the mid post, and then he hit that bounce pass to Mikal on the cut. That's something they really only started doing the last month of the season. Like, I would guess he's passed to cutters like 10 times total in the regular season. And now to just break out a beautiful dime of a bounce pass against one of the best defenses they're going to play in the playoffs is remarkable. It's like the playoffs begin and he has all these new skills. It's really incredible.
Short roll playmaking is what you're talking about there, and it's like the only thing. It was one of the only weaknesses in DeAndre's game. I mean, there are a few others. It would be nice if he hit threes and yada yada, but short roll playmaking was like the big thing that kept Dario Saric and Frank Kaminsky on the court in the regular season at all. It was the only reason that Monty wanted to play those guys. Otherwise, he'd rather play Ayton 35, 40 minutes a night if Ayton had the conditioning for it, because he's so much better. He's so much more sound defensively. I was going to bring up that play too with Mikal. If he continues to play like that, it is just so impressive how DeAndre has, in his first playoff run as well, elevated his game on all fronts in ways that we didn't expect. Just these subtle little things. He's been awesome, man. He's truly been fantastic. And I was really glad actually to see, scrolling through Twitter, that you talked about, not to give us credit or anything, but like this is why we didn't have the DeAndre Ayton contract discussion during the regular season. You made note of that today. Because it's important. Like these are when the games actually matter, and I think we weren't always the most impressed with everything DeAndre did all throughout the year.
I would say he was bad for the first 2 months.
There were rough patches. I mean, look, I got to a point where I was thinking about the trade deadline and whatever. We're well past that now, but that was a point in history, and I can't deny that. I was thinking about it back then. The strides that he has made in the past several months, and now that we're seeing him play at this high of a level, do absolutely everything that's asked of him against entirely different sort of teams with these
different challenges every single series.
I mean, to go from guarding Jokic and like that being your primary assignment to this and trying to stay on the floor against small ball, and to do that, we've got a long way to go, but to do this well in game one, I'm just glad we didn't talk about the contract until now, because here's where he earns his money. And if he keeps playing like this, he's earning a lot of money. And I don't care. Give it to him. Give him all the money. Give Mikal Bridges all the money. I literally don't care. It's not my money. I don't give a shit. The way this young core is playing right now, I could run through a brick wall for all of them, and I'm sure most Suns fans feel the same way. So, but yeah, DeAndre was awesome. To go back just real quick to what you were saying about campaign, not even about Payne specifically, but you just look at the Suns, 31 assists. 7 turnovers in a game without Chris Paul. 31 assists to 7 turnovers.
And not just without Chris Paul, against a team that switches everything. Assists are harder to come by against that kind of defense. And a lot of it has to do with this team's ability to react. It's not even necessarily the plays that they're calling. It's when the plays break down, knowing when to cut, knowing when to pop out to the three, and just making the right reads based on that. It's just incredible.
Tom Thibodeau was really coach of the year. Blatantly disrespectful, and I hope those people are ashamed now.
Hey, by the way, executive of the year,
yes,
James Jones was announced tonight at the game, giving the fans a chance to give him the respect that he deserves. He looked very uncomfortable accepting that award, but a well-deserved award, and something that you and I talked about maybe with a quarter of the season left over, that we already thought that award was wrapped up. I'll be honest, at this point, I was pretty confident they weren't going to give it to him, but I thought it was
Sean Marks all the way. Honestly, I was surprised, but I think probably the reason Champ had that reaction is because he knows there's more work to do. He's used to winning. Yeah. He doesn't want to accept anything in the Western Conference Finals. He wants to accept it at the championship parade. So, but timing wouldn't have lined up for that. So, glad he got his moment, no matter how uncomfortable it made him. Where do you want to go from here? All sorts of players. Wings? Should we talk about the wings?
Sure.
Well, let's see. What did you think?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting to look at the box score, because the way that they defended, the way the Suns defended the Clippers, it seemed like what they wanted to do is show Paul George a bunch of different looks. Like at times they had Mikal Bridges on him, at times they had Jay Crowder on him, at times they had Cameron Payne on him by design, not just on switches. Like they started the play with Cameron Payne on him and were confident that Cameron Payne could either hold his own or they were in the right position to switch if he did call for a screen, right? Because then it would have been Devin Booker, Devin Booker, Jay Crowder, or Mikal Bridges at that point. And I thought that was an interesting strategy. I just think with Paul George shooting the way he is from the 3-point line, specifically off the dribble, no matter what you do, he's likely going to get points. We see this with guys all the time, whether it be Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, and now guys like Paul George. And Paul George, for the record, he gets hot from three like this, right? This is something he's capable of doing. It just doesn't always go down the way it's been going down for him in the playoffs. And in this game, he continued to hit threes, had 7 in this game. It's going to be tough to defend him going forward. To win when he had this good of a game, I think was really important for the Suns at home and without Chris Paul especially.
Yeah, I mean, we still want Chris Paul back as soon as possible. I wish we had an update there. We just don't. But yeah, I thought Jay, Mikal did their jobs. Although for a stretch, I think it was almost like Cam Johnson and Torrey Craig in the middle quarters that were kind of carrying the Suns there for a little bit. Cam Johnson hit some big shots today. I see he finished 5 for 8, only 2 for 5 from deep. But played some really good, what he's done all season long, just played some really good off-ball kind of team defense, sort of splitting the difference between two shooters on the weak side and kind of being disruptive and breaking up passing lanes. Mikal Bridges did that tonight too. I think he got like a pivotal fast break bucket when he had the back and forth turned into an alley-oop with Devin Booker. That came off a kind of weak side pickoff. But if it's Mikal Bridges, like we know he does that. He does that every game. He's superhuman with how long his arms are. Not to take anything away from it. It's still awesome, but it's like we know Mikal does that. To see a guy like Cam Johnson step up and do that in a big game too was cool. It's okay. We've mentioned more or less almost everyone who's played in the rotation except for 2 guys. Is it time to bring up those 2 guys?
Yes, we can. I want to actually before we even get to that, I want to ask you just a strategic question here.
Do it.
When Paul George is driving, if he gets by his man, the Suns were helping, and then the Suns didn't really play zone in this game at all. But essentially, if Paul George gets by the first man, they do kind of zone up on shooters, right? Because then there are 4 shooters and only 3 defenders. So
right.
The 3 defenders are sort of zoning up and standing between the shooters, and then wherever the ball swings, they sprint out to that guy, and then that gives the rest of the defense time to rotate. Do you think they should continue to do this, or do you think they should almost make it easier for Paul George to score and just make it as difficult as possible if they can one-on-one, but essentially just really close out and shoot? The only time that I think the Clippers really made a push to get close in this one was when they were hitting threes off of double teams on Paul George. Essentially, that's when they struggled the most. So what do you think? So
I need to go back and watch the game, honestly, to really like watch it again and see what's going on there. But I think in general, the Clippers, they shot 43% from deep tonight. They just do that. Like, they're just a good shooting team like that. Mostly what I saw when I was watching closely for it, and I was trying to watch different things throughout the game, so I missed possessions here and there. I mostly saw strong closeouts from the Suns. I wasn't like disappointed in any one particular player's strength of their closeout that I would identify here. Now, within the scheme where they may be playing a little bit too far away, helping a little bit on Paul George. Paul George is really, we talked about this yesterday too. He's like the primary center of gravity within their offense now. I talked about how in that closeout game against Utah, he had 22 drives. The stats haven't updated here tonight, so I don't know exactly how many he had, but like their offense revolves around him driving, touching the paint, and then kicking out to shooters. And I don't know. I think you make it he is, obviously he does want to pass out to shooters, but like he's not a terrific playmaker. He's also a guy who will take advantage of those one-on-one matchups and go all the way to the rim if you kind of just concede that lane to him. So I don't know. I mean, mostly what I came away with after this game is that just I was impressed with Paul George. I think he showed his ability to be a triple threat number 1 star type option in this game. I already knew he was, but I thought he lived up to that. And I don't know if there's really an easy solution for what the Suns can do in game 2. I would say what they're doing so far is pretty good.
Yeah, I think that you could potentially switch less on him, but then you're sort of conceding.
No, that's
you're conceding the potential of a pull-up 3 in those scenarios, right? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to go over the screen in that scenario, because then you try to contest the shot. That leaves you vulnerable to fouling, because he's going to pull up behind that screen. and try to bait the refs into calling a foul in that scenario. So if you can find a way to have the second guy sort of hedge and allow someone like Mikal or Jay Crowder to get back to Paul George so that he can't get that pull-up three, but you keep Mikal or Mikal or Jay Crowder on him, then that's, I think, the better scenario, because then you're forcing him to try and beat you essentially one-on-one in those scenarios. I think there are ways for the Clippers to beat that. I think it becomes a little bit harder, without more of a traditional point guard, which they don't really have, and Paul George not really being the guy who makes like advanced reads. He can make good passes, but he's not making cross-court passes or really advanced reads. That's really what it is. So I think if you can find a way to do that,
There's a reason Rondo played 22 minutes. They do want that kind of connecting piece in their offense. Reggie Jackson played well tonight too, by the way, but he's not that either. There were some lazy passes, I think, thrown by Reggie Jackson. I see here he had 4 assists to 5 turnovers, but just like basic pocket passes that he had to bigs that were easily picked off by the Suns' help defense at the nail. And I was like, wow, you're really just giving it up, huh? So yeah, I mean, there's a reason Rondo plays there, because playmaking is not their forte. For as insanely good as they are at just shot making, just elite level shot making, there are other weaknesses in their offense for sure. Okay,
yeah, and you can get away with it a little bit more, I think, with Kawhi Leonard playing. But yeah,
no, absolutely, you're right. We got to bring the guy up now. I'm sorry, like 50 people have already asked me. They're like, "Can we talk about Etuan Moore?"
Yeah, can he play another minute in this series?
Well, I want to start off from a place of sympathy, because
for him or for Monty,
for both. No, but for him, seriously, for him, because the way people have phrased it to me so far, they're in my mentions. They're like, "Can you talk about how Etuan Moore sucks?" And it's like, look, I think this is a guy who is. He hasn't played many minutes this season, first of all. There's a reason for that, given the way the roster is constructed. But also, if you look at what he's being asked to do in a game like this, he was bad. We can say it. He was bad. I don't think he should play in the future.
And he's an example of a player, when he's on the floor, you switch less. You try not to let them take advantage of Etuan Moore as much as they were.
Right. At the same time, he is an undersized shooting guard being asked to play point guard in a switch-heavy defensive scheme. Like, that's what it was tonight. It was literally a strategy that was designed to make Etuan Moore look stupid, in my opinion. He is not nearly as bad of a player as the Sun scheme is making him look right now. It's just a pure desperation move of, we need another guy to move the ball. And hey, in a couple cases, I thought, he drove. He kicked it out. He found shooters. Shooters didn't necessarily hit on those specific opportunities, but I think Monty just put him out there and was like, hey, he wouldn't phrase it in this way. Like, he wouldn't tell the players this, but this is what Monty is thinking. He's like, hey, Etuan, we're putting you out there because Javon can't drive. Langston can't drive. They just can't.
Right.
So you have to drive, suck in the defense like we need Cam to do, campaign that is, and find shooters to get our offense going. And I thought Etuan tried. It did not work out. Obviously, you don't go heavily off of single game plus minus, but in this case, I do think the -6 in 11 minutes is like, it was pretty obvious that the Suns were getting killed relatively in the Etuan Moore minutes. So no, I think I'll let you go first. What was your impression of Etuan's play, and what's the move going forward, games 2 and beyond, until at least Chris Paul comes back?
So I think I'm glad you brought up the -6, because I think it is just not representative of the momentum swings that occurred while he was on the floor. Yes, the Suns were only outscored by 6 points, and maybe that is less than necessarily they were outscored by when Ayton was on the floor, right? The Suns were outscored by 7 when Ayton was on the floor. But the Suns felt in control the majority of the time that Ayton was on the floor, and they felt a little out of control when Etuan Moore was on the floor. They were not doing the things that they normally do in order to be successful. And by the way, Jay Crowder -12 in this game, so it's an example of why it doesn't matter that much.
Right.
My impression of Monty Williams is that, now I could say what I want them to do, but here's what I think is going to happen. He understands that sometimes players just don't have good games like this. And usually what he does, and we saw him do this with Saric in the Lakers series, is he'll give them another game, and he'll just pull them early if they don't have it still. So I think that's most likely going to be the thing that happens. They're going to try Etuan Moore again, and if a few minutes in, it just looks just as bad as it did in this game, they're going to pull him, and then their options become a little bit limited. Obviously, you can't play. They're trying to stagger Cameron Payne and Devin Booker so that one of them's on the floor at all times. That makes the rotations a little bit hard to figure out. Not to mention the fact that Cameron Payne has yet to play a ton of minutes in any game this season. So you're sort of testing the limits of how effective he can be at higher loads at a certain point. And I think you need to test that. You can play him a little bit more minutes and have each one more on the floor a little bit less. But at some point I think you have to try Javon Carter. And I think with Javon Carter, they're going to do the same thing. In that what they tried to do against Moore is get in the low post with Paul George against Etuan Moore. And you can do that against Javon Carter. The difference is when you bring the second guy to help, Javon Carter, his hands are so much faster in the passing lanes that it becomes harder to pass out of that double when Javon Carter is there instead of Etuan Moore. So the question is, and here's why I think it's okay to do this. When it worked with Etuan Moore on the floor is when Devin Booker hit like 9 shots in a row. The entire offense basically flowed through Devin Booker.
Was he on the floor during that stretch? I didn't even remember.
For a little bit of the beginning of it, yeah. And essentially that's what you'd have to do with Javon Carter on the floor because he's not going to create for anyone else. But if you're already doing that with Etuan Moore on the floor, why not test a guy like Javon Carter who can play better defense?
It's sound logic. I mean, it makes total sense to me. It's just, I guess, I was just trying to sympathize with Etuan Moore having a bad game. But yeah, so he played 11 minutes. I would give 5 or 6 of those minutes to Cam Payne right off the bat, just because we know what Cam Payne can do. Get him up to 34 or 35. He's a young guy. He should be able to play 34 or 35. I understand the idea of not playing him up to like 40. You don't want to ride him that hard. He should be able to play 34 or 35. So I'd do that next game. That takes care of half of the minutes right there. The other half I would probably give to Javon Carter. Under the logic, basically, which is what you're saying. You didn't phrase it like this, but if Moore is going to be a negative on both ends, and Javon is going to be a positive on defense but a negative on offense, then that's a pretty easy equation to balance, right? Like go with the guy who gives you something on one of the two ends and hope for the least liability possible.
Even then, the smallest guy that the Clippers will play is like 6'5". Like that's going to be the scenario. So even then, Javon Carter, although he's smart and does the right things, he's still in a position that it makes it a little bit harder for him to be effective defensively, especially when they're switching on everything. So the other thing that the Suns did in this game was point book. And it looked good for a stretch, but it also looked kind of bad for a stretch. There were 2 or 3 possessions in a row in the clutch where they didn't. I think the main problem was they didn't get into their offense fast enough in these plays, and that caused them to be fighting against the shot clock towards the end, and that it just ended in a couple forced shots. But I think it could get better.
I noticed that too, but I think it may have been. I mean, we'd really have to know what Monty was telling them. Because honestly, we got to that point, first of all, you get to the point in the late third quarter where you're trading twos. Booker's hitting mid-range twos. He's making every single one. But you're trading them with Paul George threes. And then the Suns went on a run. They reclaimed the lead. But as the Clippers were starting to come back, I wouldn't have been surprised if Monty just kind of told them, hey, let's run out the clock a little bit. Like, we're up 6 or 7. There's 4 minutes left. Let's slow things down, eat up the clock, and not worry, but just default to Booker making tough shots because he's proven that he can do that up to this point in the game. And so that's when they had the point book lineup. And to your point, it didn't really work for those few possessions, but they were able to close out regardless. And I think maybe that was the logic there of let's just run it out a little bit, not give them the chance to get hot if we give them too many possessions. Yeah.
So, I mean, there are options there. There are, and I think the fact that the Suns have been so resistant to run point book lineups means that I think their first instinct will be to be resistant to that, and then go to it only when they need to. In this game, they only went to it when Cameron Payne had 5 fouls, for example.
Right. Yeah.
Even when they could have gone to it, they didn't. They had to have their hand forced on that one a little bit. And on the other guy, by the way, is Dario Saric, whose best play was getting elbowed in the face by DeMarcus Cousins in this game. Really looked out of sorts in this game, and I think he's going to get another chance too. And I think he should actually, if they continue to play DeMarcus Cousins, which I'm curious. I'm surprised he even played the second half, I'll be honest. I think part of that was that Zubac had to start. So I'm not sure if they're going to go back to that or if they're going to just go small when Zubac is off the floor. If it's Zubac or Cousins, I think they're more likely to play Dario Saric and then go small against that because they don't want to concede rebounds. By the way, they did. The Clippers actually ended with more offensive rebounds than the Suns, I think, in this game. So it wasn't a game that the Suns just dominated. They won the rebound battle, which they should, but they still conceded some offensive rebounds. So I don't know. I think that Dario Saric is going to play again. I'm just curious how much more.
Look, you could throw Torrey Craig out there like we talked about. It's an option. I would liken Dario to being like he's a mousetrap. I would rather put Dario out there as the bait that lures Ty Lue into playing more DeMarcus Cousins. Because I said, I don't care how many points Boogie scores. He was going crazy in that first half. He dominated Dario Saric for that stretch. But I said at the time, I don't care how many points Boogie scores because the man is food. I don't trust his knees on the other end, and the Suns were able to kill him. He can score 15 points, and he'll give up 17 on defense, and so who cares? I leave Dario out there if it means that they're going to keep putting Boogie on him because that is a win for the Suns. If you get more minutes of Boogie at the 5 and fewer minutes of Marcus Morris or whoever, that is a win for the Suns. I'll take it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Good job, Dario.
I think if they go small again in the bench lineups, first of all, that shortens their rotation by a lot, and that means that guys are playing really extended minutes for the Clippers, which could be good or bad for them depending on how they look. They looked a little worn by the end of this game, right? I think one of the reasons the Suns were able to take care of it at the end there was their legs are a little tired. They were missing shots that they were making earlier in the game. But I think if they go small again, I think Saric will still get another chance, but then you have that Torrey Craig option that you can go with Cameron Johnson, by the way, like you said, who had a great stretch of this game that kind of hit shots when nobody else could. And that's the nice thing about this roster. The Suns have the versatility to do both. I
think it should be said, this actually really just hits on what you just ended with there. It's easy to do this when the Suns have as many kind of moving pieces gelling together, like so many players who are playing well. But I think in general we can just say, we trust Monty, obviously with the season he's had, and I've been overall really impressed with the way he's balanced his rotations throughout the playoffs. This is a very has to be in the top 3, maybe top 5 most common things that fans bitch about with their coaches. Rotations. It's rotations. When do you use timeouts? I know that's something people don't always like with Monty. I think he's been fine. Out of timeout plays, that's a big one. But rotations. Because if you're a fan, what can you tangibly see with your eyes that a coach is impacting over the game? Rotations is the big one. And I think Monty has shown that he is willing to make the adjustments, but he's not going to make the full adjustment. So next game, I'm expecting maybe a little bit of a shorter leash on Dario, definitely a shorter leash on Moore, but he also trusts these guys, and I trust him. Just given the success that they've had up to this point, those guys do deserve a second chance.
Yeah. And I think that most of the time complaints about rotations are just complaints about the roster in disguise. That's usually what they are. More than not, coaches are playing the best players they can play for any given circumstance, and there's a reason for it that fans don't always understand. Devin Booker, by the way, just to reiterate again, 40 points, 11 assists, 13 rebounds, 44 minutes, and was targeted on defense a lot in this game, put in almost every action, fighting through screens, playing one-on-one against players like Paul George, Reggie Jackson, whoever wanted to attack him. Just the ability to remain that good while being involved defensively is just an incredible thing. I just want to give a shout out to his defense there too, because they were really putting him in everything, especially early on in that game, and it didn't really work. He did a really good job on defense as well, effort-wise.
Well, we've always said he gives the effort when he's up in your face, when he's defending the ball at the point of attack. That's not, if you have a big guy, I get it. If Kawhi Leonard was playing in this series, they should target Devin Booker, because Devin Booker can't stop Kawhi Leonard. No one's strong enough to stop Kawhi Leonard. But with the personnel that the Clippers have, I don't necessarily think Devin Booker's a guy you can just consistently target with success. He's a guy you catch sleeping off the ball with the backdoor cuts. That's the sort of stuff that he still has to work on, clean up a little bit going into the offseason. But his on-ball defense is good at this point, and I think we've talked about that before. Pretty crazy that he played almost a full 10 minutes more than anyone on the team tonight.
And he scored or assisted on 43 of the Suns' final 50 points.
And also... let me do quick math here. Yeah, so the Suns only played 4 minutes without Devin Booker, but they went neutral in those 4 minutes. That's a good sign. that they didn't. Because like
that's
if we
Cameron
were,
Payne for sure.
that is campaign. That is the campaign effect. Because if we were the round one Lakers, it would have been like LeBron plays 44 minutes. He's a +4. Lakers play, well, I guess he didn't play that much, but you know what I mean. It's like LeBron played 40 minutes. Lakers were a +6. LeBron sat for 8 minutes. Lakers were a -15. So I'm glad that didn't happen to us with Booker. Now that we were relying on just one guy.
Yeah, I just want to say with Paul George, by the way, just talking about in how you're gonna defend him. Inside the arc for Paul George, he only had 2 buckets that went in. Obviously he drew some fouls. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He was 2 for 12 inside the arc in this game. And that includes 3 for 12. He includes 1 layup at the basket, and everything inside the arc he just wasn't doing because his purpose for driving was to find open 3-point shooters. This is why I think the Suns might benefit from trying to force him to take the most difficult shot near the basket and staying true on shooters as much as possible. I think that makes it difficult for DeAndre Ayton to be as effective as he normally is at the rim. But I think if you can lock down their 3-point shooting, you can beat them in a lot of easier ways, I think.
They are absolutely a jump shooting team. That is their core identity, and that is the only thing that I can confidently say they are better than the Suns at. Devin Booker has ascended to a level of ISO scorer at this point that there was a once upon a time when we believed that these two teams were going to be fully healthy, when I could have said, yeah, I'm a little afraid that Kawhi Leonard plus Paul George is better at ISO slightly than Chris Paul plus Devin Booker. A couple months ago, I might have said that. The situation we're dealing with right now, they don't have that advantage. They don't have the defensive advantage, I don't think. They have these interesting defensive schemes, and they do the most that they can with their personnel and changing up the versatility, but just the talent level of their defenders does not match the Suns' defenders. So if the Clippers are going to win this series, you're right. The one advantage they have, they're a better shooting team. They are an elite shooting team, and if you can cut that off, you'll be just fine.
Chris Paul wasn't there tonight. But boy, could you see his game in what Devin Booker was doing. The influence, the effect that he's had was obvious. Do you have anything else before we get this one out there? Obviously, we're coming back after the next game, probably going live on Spaces before it as well.
We will absolutely do a Spaces before the game. Thank you guys so much just for listening, supporting us in any way. I mean, this is an unbelievable run. I'm still kind of struggling. I was just sitting there. I wasn't nervous until like a minute before tip-off, and then I was really nervous this afternoon, I guess you could say. This has been unbelievable, and this, like, regardless of what happens, I feel really good right now about the Suns' chances in this series, but regardless of what happens, this is going to be an experience that I never forget. So I hope you guys at home feel the same way. This is awesome. Anything else for you?
There were 2 legends, I think, that most Suns fans would mention when it comes to the Suns. Steve Nash and Charles Barkley. I think today you can add Devin Booker in there definitively with his performance in the Western Conference Finals, and obviously still more to come. We'll be back after Game 2, hopefully talking about another win.